course, is a little bit controversial, has always been, and we're not so sure how controversial it will remain to be. Partial exits, some people, of course, everyone knows the full exits, and they practice it when, when there is a good opportunity, but also partial exits have been around for a while. They are looked at favorably sometimes, and sometimes unfavorably. And this will be, where we would like to get a lot of views from our speakers. And for that, I think I will just kick this off by asking each of the speakers to introduce themselves in 1 minute and their interest or general position on the topic of partial exits. And then after we've done the round of introductions, we can come back to speak a little bit about the details, break it down, and the merits to see what it is. So maybe if we can, without, start with Laith.
My name is Arzan. We're a early stage fund focused mostly on VC, up to Series A. We're in our second fund now. We've hired. Okay. So we invested in companies like Khoury and Surat, which you all know. We invested in companies outside of the region, like Canada, North America in general. We have a big appetite for seed and VC mostly. We have a big SaaS portfolio. Right now, the only thing we want to invest in is hardware and gaming. Other than that, we're pretty open.
Mohamed.
So hi everyone. Mohamed, I'm a principal at Global Ventures, leading North Africa and Levant, based out of Egypt here. Global Ventures is a growth stage venture capital fund with 3 offices in Dubai, in Egypt, and Nigeria, and we have also on-ground team members in some other countries like Saudi and Tunisia as well. We are MEA investors, we invest in Middle East and Africa, and we pretty much focus on most of the sectors as well, same here as Laith. We have pretty much up and rising, very good portfolio companies, particularly in Egypt. We're speaking of Paymop, Thunder, Nowpay, Cartona, Menus, and others. We've been part of Utopia as well, which I think most of you have heard about the big round that they just had a few weeks ago. And we exited Monzo World as well. So yeah, happy to be here.
Super, but you never said your position on partial exits. Are you just very yes, with or against?
I think it's hard to say with or against. I think it's a case by case.
Okay.
I think it's sometimes it's necessary. Sometimes it's needed. Sometimes it serves a purpose, whether it's for you as a fund or serving a purpose for the company itself that you're exiting.
And global ventures.
I think that the answer would be the same as well. It depends really on a case-by-case basis. Yeah, I would say that personally I'm more biased towards being pro exits rather than
With that,
I was thinking about your question and said, depends on the eye of the beholder. So if I was a professor sitting here and half of these guys left and that's a partial exit, how would I feel? So it depends very much on who's exiting and who's the audience. It might be good for one side, bad for another side. So I'm Kushal, Shah. I created Dubai Angels and very recently Saudi Angels. We have about 33 companies, 3 of which are in Egypt, which is Money Fellows, which is Elves, which is Urology. I've personally also invested in several others which are also in Egypt. My funny story about partial exits was I partially exited Fletcher and then I partially re-entered into Fletcher and got hurt. So I've felt it all. So I've seen the positive bit about exits and I've also seen the negative part about partially re-entering.
so criticality is name of the game sometimes, yes. And we'll move on to online. Tom, can you hear us?
Tom, is it me? Yes. Paul just said Tom.
Oh, sorry. Tommy.
I was there's a Tom in the audience. My name it's like the dance for everybody, yeah. TD, because the inflections are very, very tough on the
Let's
top.
agree that Tom did not show up today. TD.
Exactly.
Go ahead.
TD.
Sure. Please.
Yeah, my name is Toby Davis. I'm co-founder of the Lagos NGOs. My day job is as Chief Investment Officer for Green Tech Capital Partners, which is a venture building outfit out of Frankfurt, Germany. I am an angel investor. By background, I have a life portfolio of about 22 startups, mostly out of Lagos, Nigeria environs. In terms of partial exits, well, I'm probably the greenhorn amongst all of you because I've only done 2 partial exits in my 10-year angel investing career. So I'm here to learn as much as I am to contribute. Thanks a lot.
Super. And Rabih?
Marhaba, great to be with you. Thank you for having me. Rabih, Khoury, I'm a joint partner, and I'm the only chief exit officer in this whole group. Actually, that's a real title. I'm a partner of the MEVP. We're one of the oldest and largest VCs in the region, and we've done a lot of partial exits and full exits, probably more than 12 partial exits. Happy to be with you. We're more of a late-stage investor. We invest from Turkey to Pakistan. Our portfolio is in the UAE, Saudi Arabia, and Egypt. We have offices in Dubai, we have an office in Abu Dhabi, in Beirut, in Bahrain, in Egypt, and in Saudi Arabia. Really glad to be with you. And I'm for any kind of exit. We've had a very strong exit here this year across the board. As the colleagues on the panel said, it depends on the transaction.
Super. I'm really glad and happy to see that most of you turned out not to be really, either for or against adamantly, that most of you are willing to entertain a case-by-case basis and that you just take things as they come and you want to see what's of best value in the eye of the beholder in that sense. So that's actually quite good news because there has been a lot of discussions over at least the last few years in Egypt and elsewhere, and people were not looking the issue in the eye or trying to say, if you should not be doing exits or you should just be doing exits. It seemed like more one-sided, but now I'm glad that there is a balance and that people are willing to consider what's best for them and also probably what's also best for the venture. So in that, I think we should just try also to go down a little bit and dig deeper on the merits because many in the room or also online are doing investing or starting the angel investing careers and they are looking, when do I get in and when do I get out? Do I stay there forever? Partial, full? What kind of message am I communicating? So anyways, if we go back to maybe Laith, if you can just dwell a little bit, you said case by case. What would you consider in this case by case in this case by case scenario?
It depends on the stage of the fund, or what stage you invested in, and also the stage of the fund. How much are you into the lifetime of the fund? If you're a very early stage, then you would definitely want to exit sooner than the company might exit altogether, and you definitely will be offered either a full exit or a partial exit. Sometimes fund returns. You need to create liquidity and you need to show a track record as you raise your next fund. So these are all considerations that we take into mind. Recently, we were actually offered either a full exit or at least a partial exit. The company tried to push for that, but it wasn't in our best interest. It didn't harm the company that we didn't exit whether partially or fully, but we just wanted to stay. So, and we were offered also other partial exits, just as a means of right to first refusal. Basically, we said no. The founders took the exit or partial exit. And so we look at the returns and what stage we're in and the future prospects of the company and how much more we stand to make in terms of multiples. If that
on its own, particularly in the region. And I don't know, looking back probably 5, 6, 7 years ago, I don't think that this was a topic really on the table as much as these days. I agree with Laith on all of the parts. I think it really depends. But my question here is more like the breakdown here that we provided is, the question is more on the founder side or on the VC side? Because I think that the story would be a bit different, and the drivers would be a bit different, and that in the sense that each case would have its own merits in that basis. So on the founder side, I think it's pretty lucrative and interesting for the founder as acting as a motivating agent for the founder while they are building their biggest assets along the way to realize part of the gains. And if we look at like investment strategies in general, I think the first rule that we always speak about and people have in mind is let's diversify. So let's not put everything in one basket. And looking at the business as the founder's bigger asset, I think we can use the same approach as well in that sense, where basically it's along the way, it's good and motivating to have a bit of a portion along the way. On the VC side, I think I agree with that 100%. I think it depends on the fund size, on the fund cycle. What is it exactly the cycle? Like which part of the cycle is it, like early in the cycle, late in the cycle, and so on. If it's early in the cycle, it is important to show some traction. It is important to show your LPs that you will be able to recover part of the principal and on the back and so on. And actually, it is really interesting to see how LPs would reply back and say like, yeah, sure, we're happy to, let's partially exit this company and then take the money and put it in another fund and so on, and the cycle keeps going. So it is a pretty interesting sign for a VC in that sense, and it would be the merit of basis, it would be the basis of which I prefer basically to sort of purchase.
This is getting quite interesting. I thought at the beginning that we were aligned in terms of no one is really against or for, but I think now at least we know that funds have a view and also entrepreneurs will have a different view, and they are invested of course together. So the fund would have its own considerations of when did the fund start, how long does the fund have in terms of its life, what kind of message we want to send to the LPs. Towards the end of the fund is different than from the beginning of the fund, and maybe also if the fund has put its own like multiple matrix that they just if they see a good deal or a deal that's already good enough, maybe they start doing realizations because they want to realize the investments. So that's quite interesting. On the other side as well, the founders they typically start the company and get locked up to build up the company. Probably there's a lot of 3-4 years and stuff like that. So they're also looking for opportunity to realize part of the efforts that they have invested in the company. And is there a tension like between both?
Big time. So guys, why are we investing? We're following an S-curve. So there's this part of the S-curve. So angels like me are coming in, watching, trying to speed up the bottom part. Then there's the sharp U-curve, and then there's the flat. Now, if you really think about it, we're supposed to be betting on winners. And let's talk about the global winners out there. If you bet on Amazon, should you have ever sold, ever, even now, you should have never sold. Take Facebook. You should be riding this wave forever. So, if you're really betting on winners, don't exit. If you can afford to not exit, don't exit. Now, the reason to exit is some of your portfolio is sitting here and it's taking forever to turn, and some is starting to switch and you say, I'll take from here and put to here, because I can't make my 5x, 10x, 20x here, 100x here. So really, if you're exiting,
slowly, but hopefully surely, get things into shape, and then once it starts to move up, maybe they have a different view on what kind of investors they want to have. Maybe they want to change investors, and also, as you said, reason that they just want to move to the bigger ocean and get bigger money as well. It's quite interesting. It's a lot of issues actually. It has a lot of, maybe a lot of psychology as well, and a lot of unity and a lot of economics.
So it's great if you have the option to recycle the money. This means you have more flexibility in making those decisions. But I think for our fund, both funds, we don't have that option. So take the money out, you give it back to LP, and then hopefully in the next one you go back to them and they use that money and give it to you. But they might just take it or give it to someone else. So we do care about our returns, because ultimately this is what we're making. Hopefully, down the line we will have more open funds and closed-ended funds. I would say in our experience, we've been fortunate to have had offers to exit. But so far, like Kush said, we see the winners. We have winners in the portfolio which we still haven't exited, and we want to ride them till IPO, hopefully. Hopefully founders want us to stay on board. We try to also being a very, very early stage investor, you know when to back off. At a certain stage, you don't cause trouble. You want to push you with updates and reports. You don't want to be if you have an observer seat, you don't want to attend everything. It's fine. Just so you won't be at some point pushed out by a new investor. It may come from the investor coming in, wants to clean up the cap table, as opposed to just the founder. And sometimes, there's a falling out with the founders, and they just want to go out, and it happens, right? And these are all part of what we go through.
Quite interesting. It takes a lot of tenacity and a lot of maybe also politics sometimes, to just handle the relationships with founders. And I have not heard someone who said that sometimes you actually don't want to exit and you want to double down. But that we have not heard that. So maybe we can just move to TD and to Rabih. Maybe TD, could you share your experience or your thought insight?
Well, the thing is, we go in 8 out of 10 times as first external investment, so with first external money. Invariably, when the opportunities come, the two that have happened was somebody wanted to clean up the cap table as part of a pre-series A, and it was a hard one because one of them went on and became one of the 8 unicorns we have in sub-Saharan Africa. So you can imagine how I feel right now, but that's sort of the way the cookie crumbles. It's no choice. The second.
If you were not forced on that exit, you would not have exited. Or
no, I wouldn't.
Okay.
Normally, what I say to my founders when I meet them is my role is to take you to Series A. So I see my journey as an angel is to get them to, if they are serious-minded, it's get to Series A in 7 years or else you're not worth it. That's sort of our guideline, so to speak. But as one of the speakers was saying earlier, when you have to manage liquidity in the portfolio, when you've got one company growing at 38 to 40% month on month, and there's this guy sitting on about 9%, an opportunity comes within the horizon. If I look at how do I sort of put it where I know it's going to sort of create more value, and that tends to be the thinking. But I think there are a lot of things that drive partial exit. Liquidity being one of them, the appetite of the founders being another. So there are times, and I've seen it twice now, it's funny, it's always 2 times, where a founder actually wanted the partial exit because he needed to recoup, recover funding to take care of a terminally ill parent. How do you address that? So again, context is primary, but then I think I'm going to shut up because I really want to hear my new friend. The chief exit officer. Call him properly, but yeah, Rabih, that's his name. He's the chief. Here we're talking about exits. He's the boss. Over to you, my friend.
Okay. Rabih.
Thank you, Tommy.
Thank you.
We're late-stage investors, so our investment rights are pretty robust. Nobody's going to push it around the company. So we dictate when we exit, what we do in terms of tag-alongs, drag-alongs, rights of first offer, rights of first user. We obviously have capacity rights, we have pro-rata rights, so we sort of time our partial exit or actual exit whenever we need to. As an example, in Aladdin, we've done 2 partial exits, and we still sort of mentor the company through a SPAC of the region. Sometimes you time your rights of exit if a much larger fund is coming in that's going to take the company to another market, and they want to average a bit their valuation. So partial exit from our side, for example, as the lead VC before passing the baton to the next VC, can be good for the transaction. We did our first partial exit in 2012, did our first full exit of a public company in Japan in 2014. We have much more options right now, but typically never had an issue deciding whether a partial exit is the right way to go or not. We have independent investment committees, sometimes we're exiting from one fund, investing from another, and it works quite well. Just in terms of governance, and this is something important, if, for example, a partial exit will let you, push you to lose a board seat or certain rights or drop through a certain threshold, that where you lose some preferred rights, then you have to look at that as part of the whole transaction. Some of the issues you mentioned, my colleagues mentioned on the panel, have to deal a bit more with much younger companies, with larger companies, things that are a bit more structured.
And Kush.
Cannot hear you. Yeah.
One of the things, if you remember the Olympics, you have the 100-meter sprint, and then you have the relay. And in the relay, you have to pass the baton. And you're passing the baton because you're getting exhausted. The next guy has to take it and pace up. And what we, as the industry here, need to mature is how do we pass the baton from the angel to the VC to the bigger VC to the bigger VC to the IPO. That baton passing, it requires maturity, it requires good kind of engagement amongst one another, it requires a few experiments, it requires good lawyers to help us pass through that. It's complicated.
So on that, speaking from an early stage fund, and we do invest in much younger companies, and by the time we realize our returns or multiples, desired multiples, the company is still very young, and we have many of them. And at some point, exiting partially means you still have to manage the investment, into the future, and you don't want to be overwhelmed, and you don't have 50 companies or 100 companies to manage. So the option for us, I think, for our stage funds like us is fully exit or right. It's either you make it or write off, and that's what I imagine the case would be for most very early stage funds, or the preference at least.
Actually, I would say a little bit also about myself, not without not putting a lot of this, hopefully, but I'm just you were trying very much because we've for so long we've been saying that angel investors act as conveyor belts. You take very small companies, put some money into it, and hopefully you pass them on to the VCs, whichever it is, and that also most of the angels do not have it's disposable income, or wealth of angels, so it's not really institutional money. They're not being financial intermediaries. They don't, they have some sophistication, but not the sophistication to try to be in a company from day one till they exit, or they IPO. But anyways, over the last few years from experience is that we found, once we were trying to formulate this message and pass it on to the community as well to VCs who should be taking up these tickets once they start to gain some muscle and gain some traction, some market. You know, most of the society, at least the investment society, was a little bit divided because why should you want to exit a good company? You should be staying. But then I'm exiting because this is really my science, as Laith was saying. This is if there is specialization, I'm specialized in this small type of company, and you specialize in this type of company. So there was a lot of debate. And talking about lawyers, I actually took the plunge a little bit and drafted something that has become, unfortunately, infamously sometimes make famous for being infamous. So I made this. I wrote a partial exit clause actually into many agreements. Of course, you cannot force someone to give you an exit, but you can try to induce it, to instigate it, to try to say, hello, we can also sell, or something like this. But but most people now start to put it, and of course you cannot force someone to make the buy, but you can try to connect it. So I mean, this has proved more favorable to the investors, but sometimes the companies think maybe it's good. So anyways, we're trying to mature as you said, and hopefully that will be in that direction. But do you go seeking exits, or do you take them as they come? That's maybe another question. Maybe actually to Rabih, because Rabih, chief exit officer, you probably have seen so many things coming, especially when businesses are not going as expected at some points, they have a lot of hiccups. So sometimes a company might seem to be not doing well, and this is when you get an exit, and then it's being put back on track. So what kind of experience you can share with this?
Well, in BC we call experience wisdom. You always get too late. So experience is difficult. We're always dealing in BC with outliers, so it's difficult to have a rule. At least at MEVP, when a certain company is of a certain size, it starts taking a bit more of my attention, and exits can come as you're working on partnering with a client, partnering with an entrant, working with a big sponsor. A lot of your stakeholders can become your exit partners. We look at the exits all the time. I think there has been an acceleration this year, but it's been a pretty lonely job for the last 5-6 years. Kushal knows about that. Kushal sits on the investment review of our second fund. So it's been a bad year this year. We look at exits from every angle, and then we assess. It becomes our option. Liquidity in the region is not that great on exits, and I mentioned some of the structural issues we have. We create regional champions, we fund locally, we don't have a global or a go-to IPO market in the region. Some exchanges, their listing partners are archaic and they don't work for public companies. Remember, in general, in the Middle East, we don't have a direct option to go public. I think probably the most modern exchange in the region for technology companies to go public is actually the Egyptian exchange. And that makes us EC lose one option that we can drive on our own to control our own destiny. As the market gets a bit more mature and the whole structure of public finance gets a bit more complete, I think a lot of these conversations will become easier. So I engage with the companies once they get of a certain size, and then as one of the panelists said, it also depends on the timing in the fund, how much more runway we have, and we look at all types. Of ways to exit. We looked at mergers, stacks, special dividends, all kinds of bells and whistles to get some money back to our investors.
Anyone has a comment on this before I move to something else that could be interesting?
Just say the obvious to the crowd where it's not. If you're a very early stage fund, you probably only receive end of those deals. There's an exit. You can't go and instigate an exit. You will not have access to these kind of partners that you can work with to create that transaction. So for us, we're learning, we're experiencing those as they come. So from our experience, we get approached, and it's usually part of a round.
Rabih.
Yeah, I think what is emerging, as was stated earlier, is the characteristic differences of partial exits depending on the stage of the company. So when angels are exiting at Series A, for example, there's a whole set of characteristics that prevail. And later stages, as these companies start to mature, VCs are exiting, then there's another set of circumstances that prevail. So it'll be interesting sort of to hear the anatomy of these two different spheres of exits. I don't know if I'm making sense.
For me, I mean, there are three questions I would ask, whether I would pursue an exit or not, like as a VC for, one is, what is the objective of it? And definitely this plays a very good, like, important part of the decision making, because while we might pursue an exit, I don't think that we can go out and say that we want to sell. It should be part of the round, as Laith just said. And one is probably the most important aspect and part of it, because is the company ready for such a move or not? How the business plan is solid in place, how the business is performing, what is projected, and so on, because that would put in a lot of strings into the game. And probably one of the points would be the valuation of the business, where actually most of the startups you would give them in terms of valuation, you would realize the potential of what is coming next in the next round. And so having these like objective, and whether the business is ready or not, with the valuation as a blended way of seeing exactly whether to pursue a partial exit or not is an important game. But also, I think that it's some sort of a wheel that is moving in the market, and probably one thing that we have here is when we spin out the market as a VC firm, we would look at companies that might be super early stage, and we have like late stage companies that okay, we might not invest in this company, but we see it like a very good fit with one of our portfolio companies, and this by default will generate some sort of an exit opportunity. And I think now it's a major trend being adopted across the market by all VCs. So it's like an automatic wheel that is working on its own and generating a lot of opportunities, and basically we don't have like to pursue much out of the market to get it there. So we are working together. I would say the market is working together towards this stuff.
A couple of things speaking to that is one angel investing, as we try to say, you're putting your own funds, and so you can actually use the funds coming back by recycling or reusing it towards other investments. And this is unlike, for instance, in VCs, where you have LPs that will probably distribute the realizations to. So it's quite interesting, because actually for the early stage, it would help get more business, more investments going. So that's one thing. The other thing is that in part of actually your discussion, what is the kind of there's a premium and there's a discount premium for exit. So what kind of a discount premium would someone accept or feel that this is decent for the business? Part of around the world.
Let's talk about that. Imagine those of you who are VCs, if your LPs tell you they want a partial exit, right? So it's not, forget about you wanting it, your LPs telling you. So as an angel fund, we've set up angels. So we put tickets at $25,000, the next time it was $33,000, then it was $50,000. And then some angels put up their hands and said, can we get out as well? And you're like, hang on, there's going to be a discount or a premium if you're getting out. We want to keep the number of tickets available tight. So we want, as a seller of shares, you want to squeeze. As a buyer of sellers of shares, you want to make it. So the standard premium and discount we've seen is 20% up, 20% down. So the spread is up to 40% on the angel side.
Wow. Yeah, adding to that, actually, I think 20% to 20% is pretty much when we're talking about institutionally driven transactions, I would say. But there's also another aspect of the strategically driven premiums for transactions, and that's usually involving corporates. I've been part of one myself. I've seen transactions like this. I've worked on ones like this, and actually I see that the premiums can go up high by hundreds of millions. So integrated into the ecosystem and how the company is currently, the board is currently functioning and so on. And then if it contributes to a core function, then you can see premiums growing by $500 million. And that was one of the cases that I worked on, which is amazing how it can be. But other cases could be less. I can't disclose, sorry. But I mean, yeah, I mean, it's not then driven by the financial multiples of the money multiple. It's not. This is not the case. Definitely, this is a lot of like a huge premium that the company had to pay because there was a strategic aspect. They're gonna save a year somewhere around between 220 to 300 million on just optimizing the process by acquiring the specific company and not fully even acquiring the specific company. So, I mean, sometimes it's not only the money multiple that would be in the equation. There is other parts that contributes to the premium of the company as well.
Yeah, I can say, so far we have never been offered a premium for to exit partially or completely. But I mean, there is a case now. We have a company being exited. We cannot disclose what it is, but we're looking at a discount, like Kush said, it's around 20%. But there could be the option to convert into shares, to the company, the acquiring company. And it is a company in the same space, so in essence you're not exiting, but somehow exiting. So we might consider partially getting cash at a discount and keeping the shares, because the shares also, they convert at a discounted valuation in the acquiring company, and there's still upside, for the future. So we see there's that mix. We're learning, but the good news, we're discussing this because there are exits. And the more we see, the more we learn, and it's great for the region.
All learning, and just for the floor, if you haven't noticed, you probably have noticed this has gone a little bit too deep than what we expect in terms of analysis and discussion. And I think at this point we should be able to open up for some quick questions from the floor to any of the panelists. Yes, go ahead. What's your name?
Hi, I'm Roland, part of Oman Technology Fund based out of Muscat. It's a VC fund. Oman Technology Fund based out of Muscat. I think lovely discussion here from all the panelists. My point is that what we have seen so far is the partial exit actually right now as in our region comes in a stage where the company is doing well, raising larger rounds, and they want the smaller investors
can comment on the first question. I think when you ask about what would be the other options for forcing a partial, for following, not forcing a partial exit would be for me, is the same reason why sometimes I don't favor the partial exit, which is when it comes from the expense of the founders. When you look at like the typical nature of acquirers in that sense, usually PE funds, for example, coming in a corporate usually would typically take somewhere between 30 and 40% of the business, and that would result in an aggressive dilution on the founders as well as on the other capitalists. So sometimes just to balance the equation a little bit more and create some sort of balance and not creating this kind of aggressive dilution, it would be a good opportunity to pursue a partial exit in that sense, where you can collect some of these smaller earlier investors, offer them a good exit opportunity, not diluting the founder aggressively, and then we can proceed just for the sake of the business. So I think founders comes first, or entrepreneurs comes first in that sense, and that's where basically we highly consider a partial valuation.
Any response to Louis?
You know, my post-pandemic expectation is that the world is only going to go faster. So, and our jobs as VCs, angels, is to keep looking for the stars of the future world. So we should be removing the previous and planting the seeds for the more sustainable, for the more CSR-driven, for the future of our world. And so we have to keep enhancing it. We have to keep the old dogs trained, and we have to keep the new dogs aggressively barking. And I think it's our job to keep rotating the money to allow this. So I agree with this argument.
Especially maybe for the angels who would benefit from building bigger portfolios as well. And as all the good time passes quickly, so maybe we can just sticking zeros. So yes. So maybe you can take a comment from Laith, and then you can also make a concluding remark with it, and then we can pass for everyone for a concluding remark, and then we call it tonight.
I hope this keeps going.
Yeah. We can give you.
All right. I think one consideration to partially exit is if you really think the company is sick. It's I don't know how many of you have been in such a situation. We didn't exit, and you can see it. You can see the wall hitting. And sometimes you would love to exit, but there's no takers, or you cannot initiate that. So I think that's also something to think about. It's real. It happens. I don't know if it's the obvious or maybe it's talking about. In addition to, in the end, like you need to take money home. Investors are into for a payout at some point. So your LPs need to get more money out, and you also need to get paid. In addition to finally, you want to be in fund 3, large staff companies and fund 1,000. I think it's just complete the story to be good and make sense. And you want to show your LPs, people around you, that you can exit, not just take money, invest it, pick good companies. But actually, exiting is a process. And what Rabih explained, the kind of stuff we do and the number of transactions, it's beyond most of the funds in the region. And like I said, again, we're all learning, and hopefully get to this stage where we know how to exit companies. We're good at it. I think that was really fun.
Okay, sure. Actually, on the note of that, we should exit. I invested since 2009, and I have a portfolio of maybe 25 companies. So up till 2016, 2017, I was not thinking, of exiting. And every time I would meet Ahmed Alfi or El-Shawarby and Flat Six Labs, he'll give me a big hug and say, "Hello, Karma man, you're in it for the good times." Well, you get an exit, you exit. So next time I saw an exit, I didn't exit. So it's just, as Laith was saying, you need to bring back home, to bring the money back home at some point, and the more that you think about it, the more that hopefully you will meet more luck to it.
I think we've matured a lot over the past years. We've reached a very good level out of which we are so flexible to innovate in our own industry as well. And by that I mean that the beauty of the industry itself is being open-minded and approaching all opportunities with an open mind let's keep innovating in that sense. Let's work with each other the same way that we are working to even mature more and more. And founders always comes first.
I would say if you're very young, please close your ears. It's a bit like marriage, you know. After a while, it gets a bit dull, and you have to keep energizing yourself. So how do you keep that energy going with the same wife or the same husband, or do you bring a new energy with somebody else? You have to keep innovating internally or keep looking.
Living with your girlfriend, Kushal, that's what you mean? Your wife, your girlfriend,
And maybe another.
TD.
I have to agree with what's been said before. It's about refreshment. And that's the best way to do it. Because again, we looked at this from an investor standpoint. Let's not forget, we're always dealing with founders and a founding team who also have their own frame set of mind. So all things taken into consideration when it does happen. It is one that should be thought about lightly in any circumstance, but I don't think it's one that should be get out of hand either.
Thank you, TD.
people ask me how do you exit, and I tell them any way we can. This year has been a very strong year for exits for us. We've had 4 partial exits, 1 with only a small discount. We've had 2 full exits, 1 exit. We sold the company to a listed company on NASDAQ, a tech company, and we're merging Aladdin with one of the first SPACs in the region. So it's been a banner year for exits. I echo what my colleague on the panel said. There has to be a culture of exits. We at MEVP are going to start sending exit services if you're interested. We can help with a lot of the lessons we went through since starting the firm in 2009. So all to exits are important, recycling is very important, fresh blood, etc. Passing the baton, expanding, all good things.
Super, so special mentorship in partial exits from Rabih and colleagues. So super, thank you so much.
With pleasure.
Yeah, thank you, Rabih. And with that, I think I'd like to thank everyone coming from the speakers, panelists, and also the audience. And I hope that it was enriching to your experience and then give you some food for thoughts for exits, partial or full, or and just keep the cycle flowing from angel to hopefully IPO or strategic sale, and stay in the midst of it. Thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of your